as someone who is both against the death penalty and against the prison industrial complex, I am fucking aggravated as shit every single time I have to hear some liberal reactionary talk about these subject matters and say the most regurgitated, most inane bullshit about why they're bad or what they should do about it or things like that. I'm gonna give you two examples of something I had to hear again and why it's complete balderdash. The first one is that, oh, well, if you really want to punish them, why not give them life imprisonment? That seems far worse than just killing them. So what are you saying? Are you sadistic? If that's the more harsher punishment, then would it not stand to reason that if you're morally opposed to the death penalty, because it is the absolute wrong to take a human life, then if you're saying it's worse, it's more torturous, whatever, to do life imprisonment, then wouldn't you be more death penalty? Wouldn't you prefer mercy over punishment if you're the so-called peacenik, life-loving, anti-death penalty person? I mean, I don't believe that personally, that life imprisonment is worse than the death penalty, but if I did, I would then prefer the death penalty, because it would stand to reason that nobody deserves the most absolute harshest treatment, unless maybe they're a moderator. But, all in all, nobody would deserve what I would see as the worst. So then I would go for the less. You see what I'm saying? So there already is a complete moral dissonance, and just it's asinine. It makes no sense. There is no logic to it that you're going to say in one breath that you're against the death penalty, but then that life imprisonment is worse than the death penalty, and that's what you want for people. That's stupid. Another thing is that the death penalty is too expensive. It's cheaper to put people in prison than to give them the death penalty. Well, whose fault is that? Is it the fault of people that are pro-death penalty, or is it the fault of people that are anti-death penalty, making it into this big red-taped bureaucracy where they have to freaking, it's like a magic show. They have to tie these prisoners up to a gurney, they have to freaking have all these chemicals like fucking rat poison and iodine and everything, and they're hooked up to tubes and wires, and it's a spectacle. Whatever happened to just taking them into a dark alleyway and putting a gun to their head? How much does a bullet cost? A bullet square against your temple will kill you. It'll kill you fast, it'll kill you relatively painlessly, and it will probably absolutely kill you. So, how are you going to tell me that the death penalty is expensive? It's expensive now because we want it to be expensive. Because the prison industrial complex makes a lot of money by it being expensive, and the government having to pay for those chemical warfare type products. That's why it's expensive, not because killing in and of itself is expensive. If killing was expensive, people wouldn't murder other people every single day. Murder is cheap. It can't get any cheaper than fucking taking a steak knife and just stabbing someone several times. It's probably not the most humane way to kill somebody, but it's cheap. And it's definitely probably better, in my opinion, than having all these chemicals run through your body, shutting down your organs, putting you in a haze, and then falling into a deep sleep that you will never awaken from. To me, that's symbolic. That's why they do it. Because it's not simply the fact that they want to kill you because you're a bad person. They want everyone to see you die. They want you to be strapped to a gurney and have to come to the realization that you have been rejected from society, and that, you are everybody's bitch, and you are there to be made an example out of. It's a show for people. It is done on purpose to be inhumane. It is done on purpose to be a fucking sick magician act. That way, it deters people. And it's not going to deter people that authentically have a desire to kill, because there's a reason they want to kill. It's going to just scare normal people even more into doing their daily routine and doing their mundane tasks and acting like the cattle they already were. So that's all you're doing it for, is to scare the goyim, to scare the people that are going to work every single day anyway. And that's what you really want. You don't want to scare the serial killers or the rapists or anything like that. You know better than that. You know you can't scare them. What you're doing it for is to scare the cattle, so that the cattle never even conceive the idea of rebelling against their norms, or not going to work, or not pulling their weight. You know, because sometimes even cattle get sick of that shit and decide that they're going to use their cow horns to pierce somebody in the chest. And God forbid they should think that way. God forbid the cattle should start thinking for themselves, so that's why they do it. Not because of the actual criminal activity, and somehow it's so deplorable that, you know, we have to do all this big ritual shit to illustrate that point. The typical soldier kills more people than any serial killer, any murderer of any sort, and they're innocent people. Maybe they're not innocent in the political sense, but they're innocent in the sense that they did not do anything personally to the soldier. I find it more evil that a soldier will go out and slaughter brown people because his countryman told him to, rather than, you know, some guy killing his ex-wife's boyfriend or whatever, maybe because he's bitter, he's jealous, maybe she cheated on him, whatever. There's a personal reason for it. There's a personal vendetta, there's motivation. It may not be right, but it's understandable. At least it's reasonable. Soldiers are not reasonable. Their murders do not rely on rationality. They rely on patriotism, ideology, and just, hey, it's my job. So, you know, if you're gonna talk about anything, talk about fucking that. And again, war is expensive because war profiteers want it to be expensive. Again, killing people, not that expensive. Building bombs, really not that expensive. But they make it expensive on purpose. They purposely, you know, design these scientific quandaries. They design these super weapons that could nuke the moon on purpose so that they can make more money. It's always about fucking money. That's why you should be opposed to the death penalty and to the prison industrial complex. Not necessarily because you are compassionate enough to care about your fellow human being enough to not degrade them to that level. I mean, that's one good reason, but the main reason is why evil is done. Evil is done in the name of profit. Evil is done in the name of power. Evil is done in the name of securing said power. It's about the establishment maintaining their rule and keeping you fearful, ignorant, and confounded. It's about keeping you as down as possible and too scared to even so much as think for yourself, let alone do anything for yourself. So that's what I'm saying here, and that's why these liberal types annoy the hell out of me. I mean, you know, they might say that they believe the same things as us communists and socialists and anarchists, but they really don't. Or else they would go far deeper into it than simply, it's bad, it's expensive. You know, it's not about that. We know that capitalism is responsible for all that shit. It's responsible for the expensivity of it all. It's responsible for the cruelty of it all. And you're going to tell me to my face that it's simply because, oh, you know, it's just, I'm not going to deal with it. I'm not going to deal with the contradictory bullshit. I'm not going to deal with someone claiming that it is inhumane to kill somebody, but then turn around and have that evil smirk on their face where they don't mind someone suffering in prison for the rest of their life, not able to communicate with the outside world, not being able to carry on a normal social life, having to be locked in a fucking dank room and treated like a goddamn animal, and then act like you're morally superior just because you're a little above sticking some fucking poison in his veins or putting a bullet through his head. Give me a fucking break. You are worse than Republicans, because at least Republicans are blunt enough to admit they're evil, probably because they're too stupid to do otherwise. They're not smart enough to be deceitful and conniving, but you are, and that makes me even more sick. So, that's all I have to say for now.